I'm Erin Lawler Patterson, the goodness chick. I'm an addictions counselor, motivational speaker, author, and parent coach. Join me on the journey of navigating the joys and pitfalls of life, addressing parenting, giving back, mental health, addiction, and relationships. If it takes a village, then join me as one of those villagers. Villagers wanted.
All right. So today I have with me Kelly Master, who is the founder of forDignity and Emerged Ladies. Also the author of Shine, Uplifting Words for Girls in Stilettos. So Kelly, I want to welcome you here today. And I kind of was racking my brain of like when we first met, and I'm going to say ballpark 7 or 8 years ago. I know you came into the high school I was at and gave a presentation on the realities and dangers of human trafficking. And I know your organization kind of part of it, aiding victims of human trafficking and exploitation. If you want to kind of say a little bit about, I guess, I know your vision and your mission has changed a little bit from when we first met.
Right. Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so honored and excited to be here with you. But yes, I've been running forDignity, a nonprofit organization, since 2011. And our whole goal is to help women find hope and freedom from sexual exploitation and addictions. And it was birthed originally to confront human trafficking, and that is still part of what we do. But we not only want to confront human trafficking, but help victims who have been trafficked or exploited, and also prevent victims from being exploited. So that's why we get out in the community.
Right. You guys do crazy, amazing things. So like, if I were to ask you, it's like a heavy passion that you have for something that makes, I'd say, most people uncomfortable. So with that, like, what led you to form forDignity, and your passion with human trafficking and women being exploited?
Honestly, I think it was a combination of things, but one of the greatest fires that was burning in me was I was sitting at my computer one night late, sitting on the computer, and I was just kind of researching some different stories for a friend of mine who was in Guatemala, and I stumbled upon a video of a young girl, actually dozens of young children being trafficked in another country. And these little kids, they couldn't have been 5, 6, 7, 8, years old, and up to teenagers, and men were buying them. Men from America were going to Cambodia to purchase little children for sex. And I was absolutely undone, and I couldn't leave the table. I just sat there staring at my computer, and I wanted to shut it because I was so disgusted. And like you said, it was such a heavy subject, but there was something in me, a fire that started that said, you know what, you got to do something. You need to be this little girl's voice. You need to take action. But sadly, what I found was people really weren't all that interested, because there was a great disconnect, because it was a little girl in Cambodia halfway around the world. And so although people had a little bit of compassion, there wasn't a great amount of effort to do anything about it. So that's when I began really digging in deep into sex trafficking in America. And when I began to see that New Jersey was huge for sex trafficking, and that it was like the second highest paying, it was, what they say, it's like the second largest criminal industry in the United States is sex trafficking, selling human beings, and that the average age is 12 to 14 years old. That's kind of that fire started. It was almost like it was a fire, it was a passion, it was an anger, it was a righteous anger that just said, absolutely, this is unacceptable, and I'm going to do something about it.
Which is, I say, I commend you. I golf clap, even though you can't visually see me golf clap. But I know you had said, like, you were doing your research and how people don't think it's here. And I know the first time I went to my administration at the school I worked at, and it was kind of like, we need to bring this here. I will tell you, I'm going to say I can't even think of another high school that had you out to talk or had the topic that was broached because it was uncomfortable. And I was so grateful to my administration, because I actually used to, like, this raging anger and disgust at, we have kids in our counties in every part of this country that are at risk or who have been trafficked. And why aren't we talking about it?
Right.
And it's like, it's why I guess part of me is like, why aren't people getting angry? And the second I want to throw at you is like, so many people that I've talked to over the years, and you've been the catalyst for this, don't think human trafficking is something that somebody, whether themselves or someone they love, would be at risk of. Like, what do you say to that person?
Absolutely. I that is the number one thing that I see, Erin, is because people think, oh, that can't happen to me. That can't happen to my child. There's this mindset that could only happen to that person on, in the inner city whose parents are on drugs. I break that. I shatter that illusion that they have immediately. I begin telling them statistics. For instance, I think I have mentioned this to you before, and I know this podcast goes out to more than New Jersey, but just speaking into New Jersey for a moment, there was a huge bust of 150 traffickers that were taking children. This was just for children under the age of 18, and they were taking children around the country to be sold for sex. 70 of those traffickers that were busted out of 150 were from our state. And when you begin to tell people that, they begin to realize that this is legit. Social media is, I know we'll get to this later on in a podcast, but social media is the number one place our children are being targeted. So it doesn't matter if your child comes from a nice family or a not so nice family. It doesn't matter what side of the tracks you grow up on. It doesn't matter anything now with social media. Your child is a target. That's just the reality. There are perpetrators and that are sitting on the internet every single day looking for ways to find vulnerable children. And I'm not exaggerating. That's just the bottom line of what I'm facing.
Well, because to those people on the other end of the computer, it's a business.
Yes.
And so they're seeking out. And so when you talk about social media, if you were to think of, we'll say 3 ways, 3 tips, 3 strategies that you would give to that parent, that grandparent, that college kid that's listening right now, what would you say to them?
Be aware, be alert. For the parent, help your child navigate social media. I am not, some parents just want to remove the phone or remove social media. That's not the answer, because your child's going to be exposed to it one way or the other. So the reality is this is the day and age we live in. Help your child navigate it. Most parents don't. In most situations, and you can attest to this, the child knows more than the parent. Our children are more, they understand social media much more than the parent does. So the parent needs to get on board and understand what exactly is on social media. If your child has an app, you get that app as well and learn how it works. So for the parent, help your child navigate social media, learn what it is that they're doing, and not so that your child feels stuck in a box and controlled, but so that they know that there's another set of eyes looking out for them, protecting them. I say this to parents often, and I'll answer the rest of your question in a moment with the students, but I tell parents often, would you allow a rapist in your daughter's bedroom with the door locked? Well, of course not. Of course not. What parent would? However, when you're allowing your child in their bedroom with the door shut, on social media, without parameters, without boundaries, without any kind of parental controls, that is exactly what we're doing. We're allowing them to be in a room with a rapist. And so for the parent, the number one thing they need to do is be alert, be aware, help navigate that child, their children, their young adults with social media. For the college age student, I would tell them, and the high schoolers, know who you're talking to. The greatest the greatest trick out there is there's a picture of somebody and hey, this great, this 18-year-old boy likes me and he likes my photo and he's really neat and he's really cool and he's cute and he's handsome and this and that. And it's not. It's a 53-year-old man. So know who you're talking to, set boundaries, set strong boundaries, make your accounts private. Know who you're accepting as your friends on social media. You can enjoy social media. You can enjoy social media. You just need to have boundaries and be alert. Don't have your location settings put on there. Don't post things 3-4 teenage girls are out at a party. They start posting their location, where they are. They start saying all that stuff. You're just making yourself vulnerable. So just lock up those open doors on social media.
Yeah. And I'm going to throw another one out to you that I remember the first time that you came out to our school. Gosh, I guess it was about 7 years ago. And it's kind of interesting. And I think in that freshman class that you spoke to, I'm ballparking some years here. We had it was a young lady that I actually worked with that was charged with human trafficking. And what her angle was, she had put on Craigslist looking for a babysitter. And the young lady went to their house, right? There's no kids there. They then proceeded to drive this young lady up the road to a hotel where she was raped.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, and what would break, it makes me heartbroken. It's like, it was in our backyard,
Oh
and
my
it's our community. And it was, okay, well, it was, one article in the paper, and holy cow, this is horrible. And I'm like, it is here. And that young lady who was charged sat in my office, and that young lady heard your presentation, and that young lady was involved, was highly substance involved, but made a decision to violate and traffic another human being. And you pop in my head a whole lot when it comes to, a passion I admire, but an issue, and delving into and tackling an issue that we just are not simply passionate enough and dialoguing enough, because it's like, it's in our neighborhoods.
Yes. Yes. I agree. Well, you know the story that I've said over and over again about the one young lady that was working at McDonald's, 17 years old, working at McDonald's, and every night a pimp was driving through. She didn't realize it was a pimp. He gave her his business card and said, "Hey, if you ever, I can hook you up in a modeling job." And long story short, she called him one night. He picked her up and raped her, and then sold her to another pimp. And then she was caught up in human, had to every single night get raped and make this guy $10,000 a week under his control. Young 17-year-old girl from a nice family in Cherry Hill, which is a nice area. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It's right under our noses.
So it's telling people, being aware, social media posting, being aware of different situations you put yourselves in. It's because it's not just, I guess, social media with different postings from somebody asking, for kids to landscape their yard, because this is not just females.
Right.
Babysitting,
Right.
And so we're like, okay, it's here. You have people like, okay, I know how to begin to protect myself. Now, what signs do you throw out to people that if they notice, what are some of like the top 10 or whatever red flags for someone being trafficked?
Well, if it's somebody that's being trafficked, that's not necessarily being kept in the hands of the trafficker. For instance, like that girl I mentioned, she was taken away and taken to Florida, so she wasn't even here for somebody to see the signs. There are definitely still signs, whether she's with them or not, but I'm going to speak to the girl or the guy, but I know of girls who were being trafficked and still in high school, but they were being trafficked after school. It happens more often than not. And that's why I think we miss it. I think we picture that movie Taken, and we think being trafficked is somebody being thrown in the trunk of a car and handcuffs and they're being held against their will. That often is the case. However, that's not the main way that's happening in our areas. I know of many victims who were still sitting in high school, and then after school, their trafficker, their pimp, who they thought was their boyfriend, was hurting them and selling them every single night. The flags with somebody in that situation would be somebody who all of a sudden went from doing really well in school to not doing really well in school. And I know one girl who was falling asleep at her desk because she was out being raped all night long, and they would just keep telling her she was failing. They were missing the signs, and they were basically just giving her a hard time for falling asleep and failing. But if all of a sudden somebody has two cell phones versus one cell phone because the one is for their job, if she has a tattoo, I'm just going to speak to the female right now, but if she has a tattoo all of a sudden, not that tattoos are the number one reason, but if it's somebody that all of a sudden has this tattoo and she's dating an older guy, and or if you hear her calling him daddy, or just any of those things where marks on her body, things out of the ordinary. And Erin, here's another reason social media is dangerous, and it's even in another light, is that our heads are in our phones all the time, and we don't see the signs because We're too busy just staring at our phones. And that's for all of us across the board. And so for me, like, even when I'm out in public, like my eyes are always open. And if I'm sitting in a diner, let's say, and this has happened, and I see a young teenage girl and a few older men with her, and she won't make eye contact, and she has her eyes down, and she looks scared, and she doesn't seem to be able to do anything on her own, I'll keep my eye on her. I'll even take some pictures, pretending to take pictures of my children, and actually just be getting them in the background. See, for me, I don't know, it's hard for me to tell the number one signs, just to tell the average person, because my head's been in this for so long. My eyes are always open to it. But for somebody in school, I would keep my eyes out. Does she have an older boyfriend? Are things, if something feels wrong, dig a little bit deeper, ask some questions. If it's somebody that you don't know, for instance, if a friend of mine was in Starbucks, and another girl came running in, and the girl was being trafficked, and the girl that I know asked her, "Are you okay? Do you need me to call the police?" And the girl said, "No, don't call the police." That's actually a sign, because they're told not to call the police. So I know I'm kind of all over the place giving you different scenarios, but just be alert, look, listen. If you know somebody and things start going wrong and you suspect something, ask the questions. If you don't know somebody and you see this young lady and maybe she, ask the questions anyway. I don't know if that's helpful or not. It's in me, Erin, so it's hard to get the signs.
Yeah, and I know you've seen a whole lot. And I think about, and even, I don't know, I remember the first time actually I met you, and I was like, dude, this is like, you kind of embody girl power. You embody what it means to be passionate. And there's just not enough people like you in the world where it's making a difference. And I do think I agree with you where too often our eyes are on our phones, where we're submerged, and it's kind of now a part of the culture where we miss out on things that are probably maybe at times telltale signs and red flags. And I think when we have dialogue like this, it's maybe, okay, I'm putting my phone down a little bit more often. I'm being more aware. I'm being more vigilant of what I'm posting on social media and the people around me, my loved ones. It's having this dialogue. I think the dialogue's huge. And that if you're seeing different things, and, I would even say as a parent talking to our kids, that if, we talk about, what is and it isn't inappropriate touch. It's having the dialogue of, not going somewhere, or if somebody does something to you or put you in a position that it is a harm to yourself. It's talking to the parent. It's talking. And I think one of the biggest things I've heard over the years, it's, that person, that perpetrator saying, I'm going to kill, or I'm going to hurt somebody that you love.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Do you recall the story I had shared? And this is just like a sign to look for, not somebody who's already being trafficked, but a sign to look for to not be trafficked, prevent that. But it was a girl right over here in Rowan College in South Jersey, and she went online to a legitimate job site, and she was putting in applications, and she put in application for this one particular job. And after she sent that application, something went off in her, like a check mark, like, okay, something just doesn't feel right. But unfortunately, and I know on an application, you put everything, your social security number, your address, everything, your birth date. And it was a job targeting young females. And it was, I won't even name the place, but it was close by. And she had sent them all her information. And then she went online and found out they didn't have a website. Okay, so here's just like a prevention for people. Before you even send in your job applications, make sure they're legit. These people didn't even have a website, and they were looking for young college-age females for a PR marketing firm, and yet they didn't have a website. She then called the telephone number that they had given her, and as soon as she did the telephone number on her computer, all kinds of escort agency pictures and photos and advertisements started to bombard her screen, which, like-minded ads were coming onto her screen. And then when she found out who they were actually a company in Russia who did not even have any businesses in New Jersey, yet this is who was trying to get her to go to a warehouse all the way down a dark road in Cherry Hill, all the way down this one road where nothing else is but warehouses and white vans. And this is where they wanted this young female to go for a job interview. She immediately contacted her professor, who contacted me, who contacted the FBI and contacted the police. And they took it over from there. But she wasn't doing anything crazy. She wasn't on drugs. She wasn't on some crazy website. She was just on social media, or not even social media. She was on the internet looking for a job. And so for somebody like that, it wasn't that she did anything wrong. It's just a matter of being, because of the day and age we live in, because of what we're facing, she and everybody else, we just need to show a greater prevention, get on there and check things out before sending our information.
And I think it's easy to, I think we've kind of been a little desensitized where we just kind of trust easily, whether it's, it's sending that application without thought of like, who is it really going to,
Yeah.
or that posting that's up at the grocery store or things online. It's hard, I think, unless you've, I guess, I don't want to say been exposed to it or have really done your research to realize like the dangers that are out there.
Yeah.
And who's really behind that desk, who's really accepting that application, I think the more that we raise our awareness, bottom line, I think the safer we are.
Right. And it's sad because we don't want our children to walk around always being afraid.
Right.
We don't want any of us to have to walk around always being afraid. So that's what I try to always teach people when I go anywhere to speak is, listen, I want to tell you enough to scare you to take action, but not I don't want to freak anybody out, but we do want to be alert. We just want to be alert, and just being alert, we can prevent many things. If we're alert, not only for ourselves, but like we were already saying, for others, we could probably witness, there are things going on all the time. And so if we just open our eyes and we're alert, we know some of those signs. And even though we can't pinpoint every sign, there are just some general things, you see a young girl with a bunch of guys or somebody who's uncomfortable or, I don't know, for me, it's just like breathing. It's second nature. It's not a matter of, I don't have just a particular list of things to look for. I just know because I've been exposed to this for so long. But for the person who doesn't know, just being alert. And I think we all have that inner check mark, that inner discernment that says something's off here. And if we don't know, then just look a little deeper, like I've followed people out the door and just kind of, okay, what car are they getting into? Just to be alert, just to know in case I need to call the cops. Okay, I saw this situation, and I'd rather call and be wrong than not call and be right.
Absolutely. So you would recommend if those red flags kind of go off, it's calling their local police.
I would actually, if it's something that really looks like, I would call the police. However, for me, I call the National Human Trafficking Hotline number first, only because often those signs are overlooked. Like here's for instance, Erin, I had a phone call. There was a woman came running into an apartment complex in Cherry Hill. A woman came running in from the hotel across the street, and she was petrified. She wanted to go into hiding. She didn't want those guys to find her. It was to me, it sounded like a clear-cut trafficking situation. We called the police, and it ended there, just because it just didn't go any further than that. I would personally call the human trafficking hotline number, and then they'll call the local police. They'll know who to call. They'll ask certain questions. So yes, I would call that National Human Trafficking Hotline number.
Okay. And that can be found online?
Yeah, actually, I'll give it to you in 1 second. It's 188. I just don't want to tell you the wrong one, even though I pretty much know it.
Sorry to put you on the spot there. I'm like, it's
no, actually, I know it's 1-888-3737-888, but I just want to double check. And not tell you something. Yeah, it's 1-888-373. Yeah, 1-888-373-7888.
Awesome. So that's the number that they call.
Yeah, that's the number I'd call. Now, if they don't have that, call the police. Absolutely call the police. If you see something out of sorts and it seems wrong, I'm not just, I'm talking something that definitely there's a check mark, something feels wrong, something feels off. For instance, I don't know what age group's listening to this, but this is okay, I think. But, there was a girl who was part of a trafficking ring, and every single night she was buying a box of condoms at the hotel store. That's something wrong. Like that, that's a sign. That's a clear-cut sign, instead that something's going on. This girl is not just having sex with 10 men every night. She's part of a trafficking ring. And so with that, yes, I would call the National Human Trafficking Hotline number. If not, I would call the police. Absolutely.
Okay.
You know what? 'Cause what's the worst thing? We're wrong. So what? But at least we tried to help somebody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to say thank you for the work that you're doing, your passion, for hopping on today. I know I didn't give you a whole lot of notice, but I do want to kind of say before we sign off, your book, Shine, Uplifting Words for Girls in Stilettos, is available on Amazon for purchase. And I know you had said that when one purchase is made, a book is then sent to a woman in prison. Is that correct?
It is, but I wouldn't actually do it through Amazon because Amazon keeps all the money. And so
Okay.
I would do it through my website, which makes it easier so that we can then, we will send, we have a ministry in the prisons as well. And most of those women have been sexually exploited. Many of them are victims of human trafficking and have been pimped out and abused and, different crazy stuff that they've experienced. So yes, with every book that is bought, we are able to give a book to a girl in prison or to a girl who is in a sex trafficking home or a rehab. We make sure that a girl who is exploited on any level is able to receive a copy of that book.
The beautiful thing. And what's your website, Kel?
www.kellymaster.com.
Great. And I would say to you who are listening, check out Kelly's website. I will say if you are an educator, an administrator, somewhere in the world that you are looking for a speaker, Kelly is a rock star. If you're looking, first time I met her, I'm like, this girl's got it going on. You're looking to stir things up in a beautiful way that is protecting people and changing the world. Hop on her site. Kel, I want to say thank you for joining me today and kind of being part of the goodness, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Erin.
Yeah, no worries.
If you enjoyed today's show, I encourage you to subscribe to Goodness Chicks podcast and pass it along to your friends. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and have a great day.